Yes, obviously, the second week in a row, kind of had to go face the fellows with a somber mood, right? But I do think they took the coaching very, very well. Our coaches as well. We had a pretty a good staff meeting on Sunday when we got a chance to watch and review all the film. Bottom line is we're a 7-3 football team that's lost 3 games. There were one-score games. We were able to win some of those close ones as well, but obviously the 3 that you lose are the ones that stand out in your mind. So we've made a lot of good progress around here in a lot of different areas, but for us to get to where we want to be, we got to pull through in those moments, to add another score, to prevent one score, to create something in a kicking game. There's a million different ways you can get to it, but I think the one thing that has really impressed me is our guys have been resilient, have been very coachable, have been into the moment and are eager to learn. So that presents us with this week's opportunity. From an injury standpoint, we'll continue to gather more information during the course of the week. A guy last week that wasn't able to join us has already been cleared for practices and prohibiting anything going wrong. Seth Coleman will be with us, who's another really good player that has really progressed this year, has given us a lot of critical plays. I thought Gabe Ackus, in reality, stepped up in a big way on Saturday and continued to be very impressive. And Alec Bryant, to be quite honest, really showed up. There was one play that was a mental bust, but other than that, I was very impressed with Alec, another good player that we've got out of the transfer portal that's helping us in a big way. So, but Josh McCray, Chase Brown, both those guys are trending in the right direction. Very positive and excited, but don't know where we'll be by Friday for the trip and Saturday for the game. It will allow us to, continue to rep some of the guys. I thought Reggie Loves continued to pop in and do some good things. Chase Hayden has been waiting for his opportunity. Jordan Anderson, we've been on the verge of playing a couple different times, so those guys in particular, the running back position, and then Pat Bryant and T. Strain are both guys that are in concussion protocol, and as they move themselves through it, I don't have an answer to where they'll be on Saturday, but they're definitely progressing in the right direction. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Where does that leave Taz?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Taz. Incredibly tough young man. He actually had a pretty significant injury. He dislocated his wrist and played a couple more plays after it was dislocated, which is absolutely amazing. But that shows he just did not want to come out of that game. Came over and actually, right before we were taking the defensive field, JB in the doctor's camp and said, "Hey, we're taking Taz up for X-rays," and I literally just said, "Well, why is it just now?" Because it kind of happened a little bit, while the offensive series was driving down the field, and he's like, "Well, he just came to us. Taz was trying to get his." He thought he was trying to come up with a way that he could go back in there, right? But then he finally went over to JB, and it's a dislocated wrist. So he literally had surgery on Saturday during the course of the game. Met with the docs always on Sundays, and I give a lot of credit to our medical staff. They called a doctor out of the stands that was here to actually go over and perform the surgery on Saturday afternoon, and then he'll actually, if everything progresses correctly, he'll have a second wave of surgery here. So it's you're looking at a timetable of probably 4 to 6 months for recovery for him. So unfortunately, Taz is out for the year, and unfortunately at the same position as T. Strain. We also lost Rello. Rello, as you saw last week, came out for the final game recognition. A guy that came in like literally 3 or 4 days before camp started, played a significant role for us in the win over the first game of the year because we didn't have another. Taz was injured in that game, so we had him pop in that game, and then I believe Taz got injured the 10th play of the Iowa game, and Rello played the rest of that game, played extremely well. So another portal transfer guy that has been a game changer for us, has really done a nice job, and to lose him, we lost him literally on the last play of the half in the Michigan State game, in the game before that, because he wasn't obviously able to go against Michigan State. So just a couple guys at that key position, that's what really kind of gets a program like we're doing, trying to build this thing up. You can withstand an injury like we had, through that 6-game run. We had a couple injuries in every game, but that guy came in and played well. And in his case, it was a situation where the guy that had come in and played well, Rello, he got injured, which brought T. Strain in the game. T. Strain had a pick. He's doing well. Then he gets concussed. So now you're down to your 5th or 6th corner. And I thought, to be quite honest, I thought the guys that stepped into that role did a really nice job. We actually put Quan out there at corner as well, so guys doing a lot of different things to help us win.
Did you say Seth is good to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Seth Coleman, he passed his test, I believe it was last Thursday, but by concussion protocol, he couldn't play in the game.
What's that mean for you guys to get him back?
Seth, as you guys know, is not a man of many words, but he's a man of great action. I would say this year what really has surprised me about Seth is just his diligence and his preparation. I thought he took a big step. And even last year or this summer when Gabe Backus and Jared Beatty, they talked about how well Seth and Zeke kind of adopted them and took them under their wing and showed them what they were doing at the outside linebacker room. In the out of season, there's a lot of chance to get better with players helping players, and those guys did a great job with those young guys.
But you've talked a lot about adversity, dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you face in Michigan with a bunch of guys hurt. Tell me, is that adversity? Is that what you're kind of talking about?
I get it. From the outside world, yes. From the inside our building, it's the next opportunity, right? I just can't stress enough that that's how we kind of look at things. That's how we talk about it. To get a chance to go play Michigan at Michigan, there's literally nobody on our roster that played through normal means. So the only two guys that played at Michigan so far on our roster is Art Sitkowski, who played when he was at Rutgers, and obviously Chase, who played while he was at Western Michigan. So nobody on our current roster. I even thought Palcho and Marquez would father time into that slot, but neither of them. I told them yesterday, I've been able to experience a win as a player and a coach in Michigan Stadium, and what that meant and how it felt. And I think that's something that our guys are excited for the opportunity ahead of us.
The road venues have gotten bigger and maybe louder. You guys have responded. What's been key for good road play this year?
I did bring them back to a year ago. There's a lot of guys on our team that played at Penn State. It's similar in nature, 110,000 or whatever the number ends up being on Saturday. It'll be a cooler environment, so the fact that we played in that last week I think is a positive thing. We'll play in it and practice in it this week. Our guys kind of embrace, the moment to go into somebody else's place and live in that moment. I pointed out to them we have a 74-man travel roster that'll match their 74-man hotel roster. We play on the same field. We share the same tunnel, as I'm sure everybody has heard, right? So we have a lot of the same things. It's just about who lines up and plays well on Saturday.
You talked about player development, but when you look at like a Tyler Strain and a Xavier Scott, is there any other better way for them to learn than what happened to them on Saturday?
I think especially at that position, you really, I give Aaron Henry, I've been with Aaron for a long time, man. I've seen him as a player, as a coach, the skill set he coaches, the way he delivers. Obviously, Ryan has a big factor in that as a play caller as well. But, Xavier Scott was a guy that we ran out of scholarships. I knew I wanted him. I was hoping no one else was going to scholarship him on signing date. We got him the blue shirt and come here without a scholarship until the first day of classes. And I give our personnel department, personal relationships. We got Xavier really because of relationships. And T. Strain was a guy that we inherited here. He's really been on a pretty awesome journey since he's been here, and the way he played, to see that pick come his way. Even the week before, I know, there's a play against Michigan State where it was a learning moment for him, kind of like Xavier had that learning moment on Saturday. But the only way you go through those is to learn from them. What we're building and what we're doing here has been a 10-game progress in so many different ways. To be an October football team qualified for a bowl game, to be a team that's being talked about for a divisional title, to have the number of guys that we've had get injured down to probably the last 5, 6, 7 games and play as well as we have. As a head coach, I'm disappointed in the results, but I'm not disappointed in where we're at, and that's a key thing. It's paying off for us in recruiting. I think there's going to be a lot of really positive things to the finish of this season to jump into next year.
I remember you said you talked with your team about the tunnel at Michigan Stadium after the Michigan State game. Just have you done that again, especially after Saturday's game got a little back and forth with Purdue?
We were just warming up in our end zone. I don't think that was I've been here for 2 years. You guys have been here for longer than I have. I've never seen that happen. It was just two teams warming up in the same area, but it's a great point and a great segue. I do know that today, Mark Torsani, so my chief of staff, Mark Torsani, came from Michigan. He'd been with Jim 3 years prior to coming here. So Mark is very well versed in the operations there at Michigan. I really don't foresee any problems. I know they put some things in play. I know Josh has had conversations. I just really hadn't concerned myself with those because I don't think anybody wants a head coach worrying about tunnel management. But I think our guys will know the protocol. It sounds like Big Ten has put in place some really good things to try to ensure those things don't happen, and we'll live in the moment and handle that day as it happens. But I really don't foresee it being a problem.
You had talked about just being upfront with your team about what's on the table. You said like Sunday meetings, you
Mm-hmm.
show them the world around them. Now without your destiny in your hands, there's a lot of scenarios it would take.
Right.
Do you just kind of pass by that, or do you still go through what it would take to get there?
No, it's kind of been a work in progress, since I would say, we played in week 0. There wasn't a lot to talk about in that game, but coming out of the Indiana game was the first time I put the Big Ten standings up because we lost the only one we played in, right? And talked about the importance of divisional play, where it's at. Obviously, as we continue to win, we put it up every week, and this past Sunday I put it up again and just showed them where we're at, and said there's a million different scenarios, like you said, could play out, but the only scenario that's important for us is to go to Michigan. Just like last week, we concentrated on the opportunity to play Purdue at home here. Obviously, there was a divisional title directly in the wings of it. We talked about, obviously, what we're going to do offensively, defensive, special teams. We talked about the officials we're going to face. We talked about the environment we're going to play in. All those things were a factor in the game, but none of it was talking about the Big Ten West title. It was talking about, taking advantage to beat Purdue and playing for a cannon and all that goes into that.
You got 3 wins as a coach against Michigan. And I didn't realize that one at Iowa.
Blair, yep.
So that's 4 wins, a lot more than, like you said, anybody else on the team and in the program's history. What would that mean for you guys to go up there and pull it off another upset?
Well, I think a win would be critical just because of where we are in our division, to where we are in jockeying and putting ourselves for postseason play. To play Michigan and to beat them at Michigan, obviously, I think a lot of people talk about it, but for me, I don't see it as any different. Nothing disrespectful. It's a great atmosphere. I told them literally, if you love college football, which is why you're in this room, you're going to love Saturday, right? Get ready to be in one of the greatest home game environments to start the game. They're going to be all excited. One of the greatest things you can do is have the power to control your own destiny and play the way you need to play. So there's a lot of great venues in this conference. In my office, I have on one wall is Indy in the middle, surrounded by every stadium that we play in. Because in recruiting, I talk about that, right? Like, if we're recruiting a kid in Michigan, I'll say, hey, listen, come here, play for me, and I'll take you there twice, 2 or 3 times, right? I'll pay for the plane ticket. I'll give you dinner and let you play football with my uniform, right? And I use the other team's stadiums as a selling point. I know Iowa as good as anybody. I know Wisconsin as good as anybody. I've been able to have success, I think, in everybody's stadium. We actually won when I was a coordinator against Ohio State. There's a lot of great venues that if you play in this conference, that's a byproduct of those results.
You guys point to Penn State last year, the experience there.
100%, yeah, for the guys that lived it. And then, on our team right now, we travel with 74 guys to every game, right? And of those 74 guys, you probably have a group of 15 to 20 guys that get it, right? That do it. They've played big-time football. They've won in big-time environments now, right? They understand the value in the personal matchups. Then you have this next layer of guys that are kind of, looking around and saying, hey, like, I can do this, but I haven't done it yet, right? And then you got kind of those freshmen that now they're 10 games into it. So Gabe Akis, right? Like, he should understand what it means now. He's just a kid that continually aims to please, so coachable, and to get those 3 different kind of groups to play together as one is a challenge. Like, last 2 weeks we've had disappointment, but I'll tell you, like last week, Julian Pearl and Isaiah Adams on that left side played as good a football as they played together all year, right? Zy Chrysler did some good things, So Luke Ford 2 weeks ago in the loss to Michigan State might have played his most complete game since I've been here. You have guys at times popping up and doing good things. We just haven't learned how to put it all together, and we're going to keep striving for that moment. It's a lot of fun to coach these guys. That's why, Saturday I was as low gets. But Sunday, being around those guys brings you back a little bit. Even today in the building and meeting with some guys and being around my staff, you just feel that energy come back into you and know that you want to go take advantage.
Are you hopeful with Chase? Obviously, everybody saw what happened to him on Saturday. Are you hopeful he can get back here?
I hope just for Chase, right? Chase is, he's captivated a special season. I think the things that I've learned about Chase have gone beyond even the expectations that I I thought he was going to be able to do the perimeter blocks downfield. He had a pass pro on Saturday against in my opinion, a very, very good pass rusher, a guy that I think will probably be able to possibly play on Sundays or get an opportunity to play. And he was in a one-on-one inside-out pass rush, and his pass pro was incredible. And I remember specifically having some scouts early on in the season say, hey, his pass pro, well, he's beginning to answer that box, right? And for what I've witnessed out of Chase and for what I've witnessed some of my running backs in the past go play in the NFL for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, he's as good as anyone that I've ever had and has a chance to be one of the best I've ever coached.
Continually talked about reminding your guys about the kind of crew you're going to get on a week-to-week basis, but is it realistic for you guys to dial back any aggressiveness if you're going to see a tight crew? Because it seems like the way you guys play and the success you have is part of the aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we coach the same every game. We had that crew for Indiana, which obviously brought about certain emotions, but we also had them for Wisconsin, right? And one we won, one we lost. What I got concerned about was just the overwhelming number skewed against us, right? So that's conversations I have with the Big Ten office, plays that I turn in, results that I'll get back. One of the greatest people in our conference is Bill Carollo, the head of our officials. Just incredibly gifted ref in his day, and he manages people very, very well. That was a look at a championship weekend, right? And I thought they put in their mind, I'm sure, a crew that was going to be able to live in that moment and handle it. I think we can all get better after Saturday's film. That's a good point for all of us.
You don't want your corners thinking about, am I going to get a PI because of this crew or anything like that, correct?
No, I think what we talk about is, I would say certain crews are more reactive, right? That everybody's human nature. I always tell our players, man, they all got a name, right? Most of them probably are married. Most of them probably have kids. Most of them probably have friends, some more than others. That their human nature, right? Even when I decide to go, if I go after somebody, I want it to have content. I want it to have value. I try to be human with them on the backside, but called 16 penalties against us. That's a large number. I got to know what I got to do better, right? That's what I'm charging them with. Is if we're going to get called 16 times for violations in those moments, I have to do a better job. So I want to know from them what I have to do differently to know how I can prevent those from happening.
Michigan obviously is solid in all aspects. How do you talk with your guys in building confidence as you show them the film and say, this is where we see vulnerabilities or whatever it is?
Yeah, offensively, I always think when you have three areas that you have to defend, it's a hard deal, right? So they obviously have an offensive line that is very good, very talented, big, long, athletic, move extremely well. Behind them is a running back that I think can be as good as anybody in the country. Strong, powerful, has the ability to run through you, has the ability to run around you, has some shiftiness to him. And on top of that, you have a play caller in the backfield, a quarterback that's being coached by an incredibly great player in his own right? I know Jim obviously touches the program in many ways, but he's a quarterback guy, and that quarterback plays at a high level. He's got an extreme live arm, and then they have 2 or 3 answers on the perimeter and a good tight end. So it's a very tall task to defend, but I think our guys are aware of it. They'll have to win their moments. I told our guys early on, right, I don't need anybody. I don't need any NFL all-pro player showing up for me on Saturday. I just need the best version of you, right? And that's the challenge this week for me as a head coach, for Ryan as a D coordinator, Barry as the O coordinator, Coach Snyder as our special teams coordinator. Just be the best you on Saturday, and we got a chance. Defensively, they got some edge players that are very, very unique. They have great versatility. I think their coaches use them very, very well. They have some good back-end players. They have a couple of dominant inside players. Their special teams are very accurate in what they do. Jim is a very good football coach. This is kind of cool for me to compete against him because I haven't had this opportunity and have ultimate respect for him and Michigan and what they do. He's got a lot of good young coaches around him as well. That's fun to watch them have the interactions that they are. But just a really fun weekend to be involved with. I couldn't ask for anything I'd rather be doing than going to Michigan at 11 o'clock on Saturday. I know a lot of people would say that, but I sure as shit believe it.
When you have a situation with, say, an injury like Seth, and it's late in the season, you have the option of bringing his backup in. You have the option of, let's play Gabe and Alec Bryant at the same time. You have the option of, let's overhang a linebacker, let's change the scheme. How do you go about that process to be ready for that decision of an injured player and what you do?
Yeah, Robert. So twofold. I tell our coaches, basically when I hire them, I literally say, hey, there's a great coaching saying, right? That players believe that coaches play favorites, right? So I used to think the same thing when I was a player, but what I realized as a coach and then became a coordinator, and especially when I became a head coach, you play one guy, and that's the guy that gives the other 10 guys a chance to be successful. And when Zeke went down, that kind of thrust Seth into that role, and you saw it seamlessly take place, right? And then you saw Gabe kind of hop into Seth's role and what he was doing. And that doesn't happen by chance. That happens by Kevin Kane. That happens by Ryan Walters and a play caller. It happens by the development of our strength staff. And I don't think we were guessing what was going to happen. I think we just had to meticulate on how it was going to happen. And, at corner, sometimes those things have happened on top of us right now. And, Aaron Henry does not stutter. He just knows. I'll say, hey, on Friday we have this session called How We Want to Play the Game. So we have the starting lineups, and then I go through literally with the coaches in the room, okay, if this guy goes down, who is it? And Aaron has the quickest, fastest response of any coach I've ever been around, right? And every coach kind of knows that's how we're wired now. And, I think early on we probably played more freshmen. You track it. I know you do. I see your little tracker, right? Like we probably played more freshmen early on with the concept and the idea of I knew I was going to need him down the stretch. We had a pretty good idea after Gabe Backus flipped a tackling sled like 4 times in one day that he was a big, powerful guy, but we didn't know how he was going to handle moments. He's been incredible in-game moments, right? Just really, as a matter of fact, a couple of games ago, he got a little spirited, and the ref came over and said, hey, you need to call him 17 down. And I'm like, I looked at Gabe, I'm like, bro, what you usually play within yourself? He goes, I know, I just got upset. I go, well, you can't, right? You got to control the game in your method. And to think that he's a true freshman, to think when every scout comes in and says, who's 17, right? Like, that's recruiting, that's development, and that's what we got to do more of.
When you have a situation like cornerback where, okay, Taz goes down, and then Rilla was down, and then T-Strain goes out, how does that, you're past all the protocols of who you're going with next, then what do you do?
Yeah, well, I think you got to rely on what you see in practice. I don't know if it was game 3 or 4. I remember T-Strain made a couple plays. Oh, it was during our first bye week. He had a really good bye week preparation. And at that point, no one really knew T-Strain at that point. And that's when Aaron started playing him more and more with the twos. Xavier Scott, Ryan had been using him a lot as Quan's backup, and we kind of see him in that role. He's got corner skills but safety abilities. And they just started repping those guys a lot during our Devo work, which, in the end, obviously we wish we could have played better on Saturday, but it put us in a position to win a game. And the good news is sometimes young players have to go through a few things that we all have to suffer through, but I would bet on those guys 100 times over being better in the next moment.
I know we spent a lot of time talking about the kicking and punting game, but with the 1 year change here, special teams coordinator, what have you made of the return game and what you're getting out of that?
Yeah, well, the return game is a little bit based on, how you're getting the balls kicked to you, right? And it was experienced, in my view, they saw number one have some return abilities, right? So now they started doing some things with some directional kicks, doing some different things with, line up with multiple gunners because they want to get more people downfield. The element that we haven't really developed yet is just a pure good. We've rushed a punter a few times, but I think to complement a scheme that wants to take away the return game, you have to be able to bring pressure. Michigan had one block for a touchdown against Rutgers earlier this year, so there's definite two sides of that. And then in the KOR game, obviously we started the season off as good as we possibly can, but the overriding factor is statistically the way the rules are working right now. Any ball that's caught inside the 3-yard line, to get it 25 yards without a penalty, the percentages of that are really skewed in favor of just taking that ball to 25. But we definitely, I think when you kick into the wind and we got a chance to hit a low runner, I think there's definitely some things we'll just continue to get better at. Thought Sean's handled the moment really well. Our kickers and punters this past Saturday played, something that gets lost in it. Last week, big hot topic was how our kickers and punters, right? They did fairly well, and then how are we going to do in the red area? You guys haven't brought that up. We were 4 for 4, right? So when you're building a program, these little things are what you got to work through. And believe me, I took notice of it, right? I know we didn't have the win, but I knew we made a nice step in 2 areas that we put a lot of emphasis in, and the product over time will be really, really good.
Would you entertain the idea of going over the 4-game threshold for McCray, or is that not part of the thinking process?
For McCray? Yeah, Josh and I had that conversation literally when it happened. 2 weeks after the initial injury, when they were talking about the projection dates, I said, Josh, if I'm correct in the way I evaluate you and think about you, if you return in a scenario where it stays under the 4-game limit, great. But if you only get to play in 5 or 6, it's money ahead, because I don't think you're going to be at a level that to stay 4 years of a full complete year and beyond is going to be hopefully in his wheelhouse. I think he's a good enough player that however that thing plays out. Unfortunately for Josh, it's just really truly that game we finally played him in, he was feeling good, and then he got a horse collar routine and he got the ankle on the other side. So that's what I worry about, just his mental. It's kind of like build you up, get knocked back down. Nobody wants to get in that ball game more than Josh.
Good.
Okay, thank you.